Once upon a time in the small town of Dirty Creek, there lived 3 friends named Brian, Louise, and Cheryl. They were all ordinary people with ordinary lives, until one day they stumbled across an old abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. The mansion had been empty for years, and no one knew who owned it or why it was ever built in the first place. As they approached the mansion, Brian noticed a strange feeling of unease wash over him. He felt as if someone or something were watching them from within the darkened windows. Louise, on the other hand, seemed unfazed by the creepy atmosphere and urged her friends to go inside for a look around. As they entered the mansion, Brian's feeling of unease only grew stronger. He could feel something sinister lurking in the shadows, waiting for its chance to strike. Louise, however, was too fascinated by the old furniture and decorations to notice anything amiss. Cheryl, on the other hand, seemed to be able to sense something off about the mansion, but couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. As they made their way through the various rooms of the mansion, Brian could feel his heart racing with fear. He knew that something bad was going to happen, and he didn't know if he would be able to escape in time. Louise, meanwhile, was too caught up in her own curiosity to notice anything amiss. Cheryl, on the other hand, seemed to be able to sense something off about the mansion, but couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Suddenly they heard a loud creaking noise, and the front door slammed shut behind them. They all jumped in fright and turned to see the door now firmly locked. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped inside the mansion. Brian looked at his friends with a sense of dread. "We need to find a way out of here. Something isn't right," he said. As they made their way through the mansion, the sinister vibe grew stronger. They finally entered a small room, and the air was thick with the smell of rot and decay. In the center of the room lay a dark, ominous-looking book. Brian reached out to grab it, and as he picked it up, he felt a jolt of electricity run up his arms, and the book started to glow. Suddenly, the door slammed open, and Brian, Louise, and Cheryl were thrown across the room. As they slowly tried to get up, they saw a hooded figure moving towards them, ominously holding a knife. "You should have left the book alone," it whispered menacingly. The 3 friends tried to back away, but the hooded figure was too quick and lunged at them with the knife. The room was filled with screams and the sound of flesh being sliced apart. The hooded figure was unstoppable, and it was clear that their only chance of survival was to fight back. They quickly grabbed whatever they could find and started fighting for their lives, but it was no use. The hooded figure was powerful and skilled, causing great carnage and destruction. Brian looked at Louise and Cheryl. "We need to find a way out of here," he shouted. They fought hard, dodging and avoiding the hooded figure's attacks. The room was now a chaotic mess, and the furniture lay scattered all over the floor. The dim light of the room cast an eerie shadow around the hooded figure as it moved with deadly intent. Suddenly Brian spotted a window and called to his friends. "Follow me," he said. They all ran towards the window as the hooded figure chased them. Just as they reached the window, the hooded figure lunged at them with the knife. But Brian quickly pushed his friends out of the window, but his world seemed to slow down. The knife was inches away from Cheryl's throat, and Brian's heart raced as he made a split-second decision. He lunged forward, knocking Cheryl and himself out of the window, crashing onto the ground below. Louise screamed from inside the room as she witnessed her friends falling. The hooded figure turned its attention towards her, a twisted smile forming under the hood. "You can't escape, my dear," it taunted, inching closer to Louise. Brian and Cheryl groaned as they struggled to get up from the impact of the fall. They quickly realized they were hurt, but they had to keep moving. "We need to find help now," Cheryl urged, her voice shaky. They stumbled through the overgrown grounds of the mansion, adrenaline pushing them forward despite their injuries. The mansion loomed behind them, its dark presence casting a haunting shadow over the night. As they made their way through the dense woods, they could hear Louise's screams, echoing from the mansion, sending shivers down their spines. "We have to get back there," Brian said, determination in his eyes despite the pain. "We can't leave Louise alone with that thing." They retraced their steps and managed to sneak back into the mansion through a broken window. The scene that unfolded before them was a nightmare. The room was in shambles, furniture destroyed, and blood splattered across the walls. Louise was nowhere to be seen, and the hooded figure was now standing in the center of the chaos, its attention focused solely on them. "You came back! How brave!" the figure hissed, its voice sending chills down their spines. Brian and Cheryl were filled with a mix of fear and anger. They knew they had to fight, not only for their own survival, but for their friends as well. The room seemed to close in around them as they prepared to face the hooded figure once more. "Who are you? What do you want?" Brian shouted, trying to keep his voice steady. The hooded figure chuckled, its voice echoing around the room. "I am the keeper of this mansion, the guardian of its secrets, and you have trespassed into a world you do not understand." Cheryl's eyes narrowed. "We didn't come here for any secrets. We just want to get out, and we're not leaving without our friend." The figure's laugh grew louder, a chilling sound that seemed to reverberate through their very bones. "Very well. If you wish to join her, so be it." With a sudden burst of speed, the figure lunged at them, its knife glinting in the dim light. Brian and Cheryl fought back with everything they had, using broken furniture and their wits to keep the hooded figure at bay. The struggle was fierce, and both sides were determined not to back down. As they clashed, Brian's hand landed on a shard of glass from a shattered mirror. He gripped it tightly, desperation fueling his movements. With a swift and precise strike, he managed to slash at the hooded figure's arm, causing it to release a guttural scream of pain. The figure stumbled back, its hood falling back to reveal a disfigured face twisted with rage. "You will pay for that!" it snarled. Brian and Cheryl didn't waste any time. They seized the opportunity and charged at the figure, pushing it back further. The struggle continued, the room now a battleground of survival. Just as the figure seemed to be losing its strength, a loud crash echoed through the mansion. The ceiling above them groaned and then collapsed, sending debris and dust raining down. Amidst the chaos, Cheryl spotted Louise, battered but alive, emerging from the wreckage. With newfound determination, the three friends fought even harder, overwhelming the weakened figure. In a final, desperate attempt, the figure lunged once more, only to be met with a united front. Brian, Cheryl, and Louise delivered a final blow, sending the hooded figure crashing to the ground. Panting and bruised, they watched as the figure's form seemed to dissipate, leaving behind only an eerie silence. The mansion itself felt as if it sighed in relief, the air clearing of the malevolent presence that had plagued it for so long. As dawn broke outside, the three friends emerged from the mansion, battered but alive. They walked away from the mansion, forever changed by the harrowing experience they had endured. The small town of Dirty Creek would never be the same, and the abandoned mansion would remain a haunting memory, a reminder of the darkness that could lie hidden in the most ordinary of places.